Welcome to another episode of Courageous Me. And I'm very excited because I've got an incredibly smart woman who's also become a friend of mine. So we've had many catch ups. We were introduced through a mutual, she was a client, but also a friend, Natalia Smith. And just, when someone says, you've got to meet this person, that was what Natalia said about Jocelyn and I. And I know we also had our photos taken by Ksenia Belova. So when I met Jocelyn, I actually had already seen her photos because we had the same personal branding photographer. So Jocelyn Chong is a business strategist. She's CEO and founder of her own business, and I'll get you to share a bit about that shortly, Jocelyn. But before we do, what excites you to have a conversation with me today about courage?
Courage is a very important key ingredient in a lot of areas in our life, whether it's your personal life or your professional life. Integrating courage is an absolute must. And I can expand more further down this conversation, but that as a starting point, it is a key ingredient. So I'd
Oh,
love to, explore more about that as we go along. But that would be why courage is where a lot of starting point comes in.
I love how you said integrated courage too. I haven't heard that term in any of the episodes, so I absolutely want to know more about that. So I'm sure that we're going to work that out and weave it through the conversation as we go. So can you just share a little bit about who's Jocelyn? And then I want you to go back and share, when was a moment, I don't care whether it's personally or professionally, when you really had to reach in and find some courage in your own life?
Absolutely. So who am I? I'm Jocelyn Chong. I am the best in the world in corporate training, business mentoring, and also facilitating a lot of private events. That's what I do. That lights me up and that sparks a lot of joy in my world. Prior to running my own practice, I came from a banking and finance world. Absolutely love numbers, money, and people. And I always find that in those combination of people, money, and business, that's where the world, thrives, and that's where the economy circulates around. And so that was my world for 2 decades. And also, I was very privileged prior to that, that I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. My grandparents has got family business, so I literally born into a family business and entrepreneurial upbringing. And I watched my grandma, my grandfather, they just, do business with people. And so it was just natural for me to come into the business world. And quite frankly, I will not know any different if I don't know anything else about business, because that was just the world, the pathway that I was, brought into. So that's in a nutshell about where I am and where I have come from as well.
Okay, before you share a moment when you had to reach in and find some courage, I need to just rewind a minute. When I asked you to share a bit about who you are, you said, I'm Jocelyn Chong. I am the best in the world at. I love that. I have to stop you in your shoes because owning your gift and the thing that you really are so good at, very few women do it. Why do you do it? Like, where do you get the guts to do that? Because it is beautiful. We've already kicked off with one of the most beautiful openings I could imagine. So where does that come from?
Here's the thing, it was not always that way. And as I live and, you know, grew deeper into knowing who I am, I learned that if I don't claim my own truth, who would? And if I only have one life to live on, and I know my skills, my talents, my experience, my expertise, I've got to believe and claim it. If I don't, then how can I help my clients? How can I serve my clients at the highest level? And so that statement then enables me to claim my truth, which also equally enables you or our listeners to claim their truth. Like
Oh,
for
yeah.
you, you'll be, I am in the best in the world at really facilitating, amazing keynote speaking on the topic of courage is me. Like another real estate agent would be, I am the best in the world at looking for the best home for someone else. It's if you are not the best in it, then you've got to find what else you need to find your best in, because that is your work. That is what you wake up for every single day. And if you are not living with joy and you don't find joy in it, maybe this serves as a reminder for you to do a bit of inventory, stock check, and ask yourself, am I missing the mark? And maybe I got to courageously go and find out what I am the best in the world for, because
Oh.
all of us have got that. All of us have got
Mm.
that. Some of our best in the world had been suppressed by someone else. Some of our best in the world, you're not giving yourself the permission to be the best in the world at, because someone said some statement and then you held on to that. And
Mhm.
then sometimes your best in the world is that you have got that limiting belief that you think you are not good enough, so you don't claim that. Now,
That's the thing.
all that
Yeah.
whole recipe is that you will hopefully use this opportunity to pause, maybe pause this moment and just go deep and
Mm.
find out your best in the world. You could be so good at cooking a particular pasta recipe and you are the best in the world at that. And start saying that. Start saying that statement, I am the best in the world at, whatever it might be that sparks joy. It has to spark joy. And here is the key component that you are the best in the world, that it aligns with your head, your heart, and your gut. I'll say that
Mm.
again. It will align with your head, your heart, and your gut. And when those all areas aligned, you know that you're best in the world. Nobody can challenge that because you truly are.
Oh, and that, do you know, it's so interesting. About 10 years ago, I was at a 4-day workshop with this amazing coach from America, and I ended up becoming a client of his. But I remember there was a moment where we all had to write, I am the best at whatever it was. And we're in a room full of Aussies, and male and female. And nobody wanted to say, I am the best at. It felt really icky and weird. And you know what he said, because he was American? He said, I don't know what your problem is here in Australia, but we've got some of the best in their field in this room, and you're not owning it, you're not claiming it. So that's why here, and I know you do a lot of work with people in America. So I wonder if that's also rubbed off. That's really interesting. But rather than going down that rabbit hole, let's go back. When's the first moment when you had to reach in and find some courage at some point or somewhere in your life? Again, personally and professionally, don't mind.
Yep. I've got so many examples, but let me use this one. So I was born and bred in Malaysia, and I left home when I was 17. So I've never been to Australia before. And literally, I have to take the plane and have the courage to trust that I am leaving my home country by myself. I'm going to start a new life in a new country where I don't have any friends. I don't know anyone. And so that is courage in itself, because you have to make it work. Now, my desire was stronger than my fears, and that ingredients of courage come into play. So yes, I
Mm.
don't know the known part, but I have read something that someone else had done it before. There's like university pamphlets that you read and like, it's possible. Clearly, it's possible. It's just that I need to bridge that A to B, and courage helped me bridge that A to B.
Well, but
So
you're
I
only
would,
17. And
that's right.
why Australia? So you're in Malaysia. Why Australia?
So Many years ago, um, Australia and Malaysia had a lot of partnership arrangements in terms of education. And Malaysia also had partnerships with the US and the UK. My parents worked really hard to save up, and with Malaysian dollar is 1 to 3, but with UK is 1 to 7. My preference at the time was actually going to the UK to study. But my parents said, look, if you go to UK, we didn't have enough sum, and you've got your sister as well. So we can afford all the expenses for Australia. So your option is to actually, attempt to apply for the universities in Australia. And that's where, it all happened. So
So
it's
it
actually because
literally
of the
came
exchange
down
rate.
to so it literally came down to the exchange rate that dictated Australia over the UK. Why not Malaysia? Are there not the universities in Malaysia? Like, why did it involve a country change?
In Malaysia, it's a very multicultural environment. And my parents had always wanted me to study overseas because they wanted my sister and I to have a better life. And so in Malaysia, you have to work harder, 500% more, to really be almost equal to the locals, because Chinese is effectively a second class citizen in Malaysia, because
And were
you've
your
got
parents
the,
Chinese?
yes.
Yes.
So
Okay. Thank
I'm
you.
Malaysian Chinese, and then you got the Malaysian, you know, locals. And so my parents had worked hard. They had this vision that they want to send their children overseas. And yeah, and so that was the pathway that brought me to Australia.
Wow. And what did you study in Australia? And was that your choice? Or was that something that, families' expectations, they're footing the bill? Did they kind of say, like the traditional, I want you to do medicine or law or something like that, or finance? Or was it a choice of yours because of something that you wanted to do? How did that kind of play out?
So it's very easy. So to answer that question, in Malaysia, you got three choices, right? If you're really smart, you do medicine. If you're a guy, you
Mhm.
do engineering. If you're a girl, you do accountancy.
Oh,
Period.
really? That's simple.
Yeah, that's the way
Right. So
you
you're
you
really smart
operate.
and you're a girl. Yeah.
Yes, that's the way you filter your career pathway and your future. And so
Oh
because
my
I'm a
God.
girl, I'll just land in finance and accountancy. Yeah,
Wow.
because
Did you did you like numbers? Like, were you good at maths? Did you enjoy? Not that I know that finance and accountancy doesn't always just mean maths, but was it of interest to you at least?
so I love finance. I excelled in so many high distinctions in finance. I didn't have a lot of passion for accountancy. Now, I did accountancy because it was like, part of it, it was like, of course you have to do accountancy. It's a no-brainer. You should be doing accountancy. You should join a big four. That's your natural pathway. So that's why I did accountancy. But I was passionate about finance. That's why I started my career with the big four, Ernst& and Young, and then I switched over to banking because I've always loved finance. And they are quite different. Yes, they're numbers driven, but
Mm.
the world of finance are different. And if you do economics again, it's another level of, you know, all the difference, in terms of the way you look into the world of, business. So yeah, that is how I landed on my career path.
I so I'm laughing because I'm reflecting on when I was at uni, I was doing economics, right? And economic statistics was actually my favorite subject. That was what I was really good at. So I loved numbers. Jocelyn, I almost failed accounting. so people would say when I laugh about nearly failing accounting, it's like, oh, you're not very good at numbers. And like, no, because actually economic statistics was my best subject. I couldn't find any logic in accounting. I found logic in statistics. So I do I do completely understand when we talk about, finance and accounting. Yeah, same, but very different. So yeah, I
Correct.
love that. Yeah.
And
So you've come
another
out here
thing
and studied. Yep.
is how numbers, right? Is how numbers are presented to us. And my accounting lecturers actually was so boring. And if I, look back and offered them a new teaching method to make accounting exciting, I reckon I would really enjoy accounting. Because now I know P&L is fun. Like you need to know your balance sheet, you need to know your numbers, you need to know all the different items. But they didn't actually sell the idea to me really well. And they were so boring. And I thought, look, I'll just do it because it's just, I didn't know any different, number one. And so I'm like, I'll just do it. But once I knew how fun it is, it's actually gonna benefit us so much because if you don't know your numbers, you don't know a lot of things in the world of sales, in the world of business, in the world of anything that you do, whether it's lending, anything that you do is all numbers. So
Mm,
yeah.
mm. Oh, so true, so true. So you're in Australia, you're still living in Australia now, right? And you're no longer 17. Talk to me about what your past looked like, and in particular, where courage played out. Because I do know you mentioned that, I mean, obviously you have your own business now, but you started off in one of the big fours. So how did that kind of play out in your life?
So I progressed to an accounting career. I was in audit and did a lot of audit work with multinational companies. Very privileged to be immersed in that. And I felt that what, it was time for me to move to finance. So it was actually another step forward into building up my courage to switch from accounting to finance. Because here's the thing, in the early 2000, right, when you switch career, it's not normal. It's almost like when you do accountancy, you are in accountancy, you should be in that role for the next 40 years of your life. And I had to really educate myself on a few things and go, it's all right to switch now. And yes, I will take a pay cut to actually move into banking. But if I don't do that now, as I go further up into accountancy, it will be even harder because then the pay cut will be even greater. So that was how it took courage again to switch career. So that was another
Yeah.
journey of, pulling in courage, and you have to stand by your decision as well because you always get different input from people that you're not seeking input from, and they like to tell you that, oh no, you know what, you've been so successful, you've got a great company behind you. But if you don't enjoy it, you got to be true to yourself. And if you're not honest to
Yeah.
yourself, then that is something that I would invite you to think about because you need to stay honest to yourself.
Yeah, and it's not easy. Like, I don't know how your family took that. Did they kind of weigh into the decision? Mind you, it sounds like you made the decision anyway, because I know that there's a lot of people, as you said, especially back, say, in the 2000s, where, yeah, a career change was a really big deal. I mean, nowadays, gosh, you encourage people to go out and give things a go and explore. And if you've been with the one company for more than 6 years, like, wow, that's weird. Whereas back then, and even though to those from the outside who don't understand, the whole accounting, finance, and banking and the differences between the two, it might be like, well, that's not really a career change, but you knew it was. And so you did do that. And how did that work out for you?
I loved it. So I excelled in the banking part. And in banking, it's like every quarter, right? I've been recognized for awards. It's literally almost every quarter. Every year I go to the best of the best conference by different banks I've worked with. I worked with three of the top banks in Australia. And it was just that buzz, and it was just natural for me to continue after 18 months or 2 years to continue to progress in my career and continue to explore different opportunities within the organization because, banking world, there's so many different departments that you can explore. And that was the really, really exciting part of the journey. And so I was in banking since 2005, actually. Yeah.
Mm, mm. And so, and obviously progressed your way through, and if you're winning awards already, you've obviously gone to level. Why why did you leave the corporate world and start your own business? Because, like I said, at the introduction, you ran your own business. Talk to me about that, because again, having been in the corporate world myself for 20 years and leaving, I know I did it. I'm always interested why you do it, because it's not necessarily the easiest path.
Yes. Great question. Well, the turning point for me was that I was knee deep in the financial planning industry, and the banking world doesn't even have a financial planning arm ever again post Royal Commission because every single bank shut down their license. And so, even if I want to progress further in banking in that expert field, there's literally no opportunities there to progress any further. So, that was one reason why. The second part is that I could always go back into other areas of banking, but banking now is very much to do with lending. And if you don't start earlier, again, it's a very, very different pathway as you go so deep. And I was so high up in the leadership already. So it was just all the skill sets I've acquired. It was the right time for me to set up my own practice. And all of us have got that inner voice, the voice that whispers to us, the voice that just the knowing. I call that the knowing that when it's time, and that it's time for you to step into a new chapter, a new era of your own career. And so that was for me. Now, it didn't happen overnight. It took me time. For example, because I held on a license to practice, and I was so skilled, so qualified to give up a license that people actually study so hard to acquire it. And I was like, you know what, I'm actually going to give up. A lot of people think that that was a crazy, crazy decision to, take. But I just knew it because I knew that in my heart, there was something more for me that I could do beyond just clinging on to that. Because it is very, very comfortable to stay in what you are comfortable with. And it's only normal for us to feel that way. And there's a lot of uncertainty when you want to move into the world of entrepreneurship, right? Which means you have to really back yourself. You got to know that that's seriously what you want to do. And you are willing to give up something in order to step into it. If not, you will not be able to give 100%. You can't commit when you are one leg there and the other leg there, right? You got to be 100% two leg in the pool and focus on it and pursue that with all your heart, all your might, all your spirit, every part of you. And that was what I was willing to do.
Yeah. And do you think that comes back to what you said at the very beginning about entrepreneurship is in your family, it was in your bloodline? Like it's kind of what you knew, albeit, a child growing up. Do you think that has played a role in you making that decision? Because you could have still got a job somewhere else and been an employee again, as opposed to becoming a business owner.
Yes, so my background set a foundation up for me. And even when I was in banking, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit already because I always led my team as though it was my business. So I would call that intrapreneur. rather than an entrepreneur because I already was very much, thinking that way, owning my team, leading them, seeing them as though this is my business, not me as a leader working for the organization. So it is so subtle, but that shift is vital in terms of helping yourself transition because I still believe everyone has got an entrepreneurial spirit. I think it's how much, we are willing to fan that flame of that spirit to let it grow. So, yeah, that sets a good
Yeah.
foundation for me in my earlier years, in my childhood years. Absolutely.
And it is, I completely agree with you. And it really, you've got to be all in, right? If you're going to do this, you can't go in half-heartedly because it won't work, it'll crumble you. I know you do a lot of work with other entrepreneurs and a lot in particular around their mindset. So how does that play out? But in particular, how do you keep your mindset so that, and it's challenging running your own gig. Like no matter what industry or what you're doing, there's a lot of challenges. How do you like balance it out? What's your kind of go-to to keep you, on the job and keep you sane while you're doing it?
I am a lifelong learner. So for me, I just love to learn new things. And I just know that there's so many new things to learn and implement. So it's one thing that you learn something, but it's another to implement it to see how it play out into your world. So by nature, I've always enjoyed that. And in terms of, really applying the journey, the mindset piece, here's what I always feel. Our mind can always sometimes actually lie to us because you can create a lot of stories and they're not true, right? But you can blow it up and add drama and different thoughts and the different things come into your world and you can play out the drama in your head. But a lot of that are lies, I call them. And so you got to be a very good observer of your own life to go catch that. That's a lie. You just live your own lies and miss out on all the opportunities that's available to you right now, this moment. And if you
Mm.
can actually step out and observe yourself and then pull out the lies, break it down, and go, is this truth? Is this lie? Or these stories I made up? Or it's just because someone else's experience become yours because you spend too much time with them and you do not know how to set clear boundaries. And so the mindset work is very, very fundamental if you want to pursue a whole new world out there. Because if you can
Mm.
actually release all that pieces of every part, like you can break it down from your life, your health, your relationship, your physical aspect, your money energy, you will live a new life completely. And so once you're able to master your mindset, you can do so many more new things that is already waiting for you to explore. Like it's just there, wanting you to reach it. Pretty much you just tune in a new frequency and you will
Mm.
be there. But you got
And
to
this
want
is,
it. You got to give yourself the
yeah.
permission. Yeah.
That's so true. And what I was going to say is, you do this work so beautifully, and many people do, and I know I've done a lot of this work myself, but not everyone does. So I loved what you were talking about. Like we're all storytellers, right? We all tell ourselves stories of our own lives, some of which are really helpful, some which really hinder us and hold us back. But knowing the distinction between what's true and what's not, if you've done, gone down that path and if you haven't, and you are finding that, oh yeah, I couldn't be like that because I'm not that kind of person, all those negatives, what are the things that you share with someone starting out who's not as, say, advanced in being able to sit back and, like you said, kind of tune in and observe what's going on. What are some little things that you could suggest that they do?
I've always invite them. Number one is if they can actually pause and visualize what's possible for them, and then they can trace back, because what you can hold in your vision, you can hold in your hand. You can
Yeah.
always create, but equally, if you hold the wrong vision, guess what? The bad things will come too. So you tune into that energy, right? If you keep thinking that the world is dark and nasty, guess what? You will continue to invite that energy into your space. So basic things are like meditation, right? Think
Mhm.
about how you can meditate to shift your mindset. There are so many different tools, but I always want to introduce like EFT tapping is a really good tool to do. Journaling, I do it
Mm.
in a way that your past and your future, you get to create before and after. But what if you get to create and this is you? There is no rules, there's no boundaries. You get to create that. What would you do
Mm.
different, the before and
Mm.
after? And then
Yeah, I
you
like
can go
that
deeper
before and after.
into, right? Hypnotherapy, you can go into so many different modalities that allow you to explore that. And I can go as deep depending on what level and how much curiosity they are willing to explore it. But I always start with, can you start with meditation? Because your mind is so busy. You got 60,000 thoughts at minimum a day running in your mind. And guess what? 97% of those thoughts are subconscious thoughts that repeat over and over and over again. And if your vibration is very low, you're only going to repeat very low value cycle thoughts, very low value cycle thoughts. They just come back. And then you start to feel nervous, anxious, start to feel, oh, I'm going to resist doing this. And then someone says something, it'll trigger you, and you feel like, oh, no, I'm getting angry. But if you can actually pull back, you can really pause and you can really think, all right, I know I have got subconscious thoughts that are not serving me, but equally, I know there are positive thoughts that I can invite into my world. I can actually adopt that through mantra, right? Do your mirror work, basic things like I'm positive, I'm good enough. Look at yourself in the mirror, look at your eyes, say that. And it might take you 1,000 times before it becomes something that you believe in. Now, if it takes you 1,000 times between the first and the 1,000 times, borrow my belief that I
Mm.
believe in you, that you are enough until you form your own belief. And that's where I come in as a coach, as a mentor, because I have this superpower that I get to see your fullest potential already. I'm gifted in that. So whenever I see someone, I already see you can do more than what you do now, but they cannot see that yet. And so I can start to encourage them. I can actually position them in the right place, surround them with the right people, helping them tune to the right frequency, helping them find different modalities, whether it's tools or strategies to really go, this is possible. How can I expand your possibility? Come on a journey with me. It will not happen overnight, but it will happen with time. And you've got to, one, to allow it to happen. And actually, if you want rapid level of success and you're willing to release the past and do that observer job and just sit there and watch you, the observer, running around doing some, behaviors that doesn't serve you, you go like, oh my God, that's me doing that. But I could be operating differently at a high
Mm.
value cycle.
Mm.
And that's available. All these things you don't need. It's not woo woo. It's actually scientifically proven. It's available to all of us. And so you got to give
Mm.
yourself permission to do that.
Oh, totally. And you know what I love about, so many of the people and like me, like you in financial services, I had such a background in it that you can have that very logical, practical, left brain kind of operating system. And at the same time, that beautiful kind of more intuitive, going to the observation, the meditation and the combination of the two is actually where the magic is. And I remember Jocelyn years and years and years ago, before I got into any of this myself, the whole monkey mind and couldn't stop thinking all the time and driving my husband nuts. So he paid for me to go to someone to teach me how to meditate. And at the end of the hour, she took my money, but she said, I can't teach you. You're not ready. You don't actually want this. You're here because someone else has paid for you to be here, but you don't want to be here. And I was quite insulted, as someone who tries, as a high achiever, it's like, what do you mean I can't do it? So it's interesting that what I had to do to get to a point where I could do it was actually, slow down, the reflection, the introspection, and totally opposite to what I was meant to be doing in my work. So I love that you've got that beautiful mix of the two. So what about you, right? You come across as so confident, you've got everything together, you've just there couldn't be a single thing that could possibly derail you or trigger you in any direction other than positive. I'm sure it does though, because you're human. How do you deal with things when things do go a bit pear-shaped or if life throws you a bit of a curveball?
So, what you see today is actually a lot of work and layers that I've peeled off, right? And you're speaking to someone who had integrated a lot of courage to let go of the past because there were a lot of lies that, I held on to in my own world. And I'm actually an introvert. I
Mm,
love my own space. I don't need to be around people. I find it so fulfilling and I'm really happy by myself. So a lot of
mm,
people think that I'm out there leading teams, speaking, facilitating events. You must be an extrovert. Actually, no, you can be an introvert and still do that. You just need to know when you actually energize yourself and when you
mm,
retreat and where you set boundaries.
mm.
So
So
for me, let me
mm,
break it down.
mm,
I'll give you a couple of examples that I'm sure our audience can relate to.
mm,
So, in the world of banking, when I first started, I've always wanted to wear red lipstick. But I always felt that if I wear red lipstick, I'm going to be loud because, like, I wasn't confident enough to carry it. So, it took me many years to own the color and let the color not drown me, but the color enhanced my personality. Now, for women, you
mm,
got to know that the lipstick doesn't drown you. You are the character, you are the brand. Whatever you wear, it's meant to enhance you, right? So
mm,
that's one example. Now, in terms of, dressing up, colors, a lot of us women are comfortable to hide in, navy, gray, black. If you're in Melbourne, that's our common
mm,
colors because it's safe. Or you wear a lot of clothing that are probably, flowy and they're not structured. You just, you use that to just hide who you are. But I've always felt that over the years, I've hired a lot of personal stylists. And,
mm,
to start off with, I had my aunt and my grandmother who's always been great at, dressing and setting up the trend and all that. So they were my role models. But I had to own it when I left home and be in Australia because I didn't see it. What you don't see for a while, you lose that vision. But you can do that and you can own the colors. So I used to think, I would love to wear hot pink and I would buy the dress and kept it in the cupboard for years and never dare to wear it. It's like, I don't know. I don't want to be too loud in a party. I don't know how to walk in with that color. Now, it
yeah.
took me many, many practice run to go, I'm wearing this color and it is my color and I enjoy it and this is me. And I invite our audience to do that. Whatever colors, whatever branding, whether you're bold, you're elegant style, you are, whichever bohemian, whatever archetypes you prefer, own that. Don't wait for the one day. Make it today.
Mm,
Make it today. So those are the areas in terms of the image component.
mm,
In terms
mm,
of, for example, speaking, right? English is not my first language. When I left home in Malaysia, we study 3 languages in school. I speak 5. And so I always felt that I don't speak like an Australian. I've got an accent and I still do, and you know that. But now I realize that is my unique piece. That's where I
mm,
bring my uniqueness rather than saying that I'm not evolved to be like an Australian, even though I'm an Australian. You don't have to be. You are who you are. That makes you amazing. That makes the world go around. Everyone has got your unique qualities. And so own it rather than, denying it or,
mm.
shutting it down. Own it. This is you. This is the combination. Imagine everyone's the same. How boring that might be. So
Oh, it'd be
own,
awful. And,
yeah.
own it has definitely been a theme from as soon as I asked you who is Jocelyn Chong. The first thing, when I am the best, it all comes back to owning it. So just on that, Jocelyn, what other lies did you believe for a long time that you had to get past and retell yourself a new narrative in order to be who you are today? What was another lie that you had to really, like I said, move on
Yes.
and get through?
So, for those of you who suffer body image issue, I suffered that for many years until the age of 38. And I'll tell you a part of my body because I have got chunky legs. And I was growing up in an environment where my mom, my auntie, they all have slim legs, the supermodel, the era of like, Naomi Campbell, Elle Macpherson, those era, they're long legs, right? Well shaped. I don't. I'm blessed with amazing chunky legs because I am part of how my dad, chunky. So we've got chunky calves. I was told by many women because I've got chunky calves to actually don't wear skirt. And I held on to that statement for many years. And every time I go and buy any clothing, any dresses, it will come back. It will really, really tear me down. And I would feel so discouraged, like, oh no, because I don't have the long legs. And every single magazine is like, you got to fit into that mold. Otherwise, you are not perfect. You're really imperfect. And so you are, the second grade or, the second class, and it's like, how can that be? And I remembered at the age of 38, I realized, you know what? I had enough of this. I'm old enough to take charge of my own body. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to let that thought rule my world when I shop. And I'm like, I'm going to wear skirt. I'm going to wear, a lot of dresses now going forward and own that, right? And
Own
it
it again.
it took weeks, months. It's almost like I'm coming out of that world of, criticism that I held on to. And now just like, this is what I like. This is how I'm going to dress. And of course, with a lot of help of personal stylists, you just own your body and you wear the shapes, the colors, the style that suits you, that enhance you. And so that is, another way of me building up the courage to step out of
Mm.
my own truth.
And owning it. Tell me though, why 38? What was significant? Because to even remember your age specifically, why is that?
So over the years in my life, I've always loved to write my vision and I write them in colorful pens. There's 2 parts I would actually make a copy in my mirror in the morning where I do my makeup, and I will read them because they're so evident there. And I wrote, okay, what I want to achieve this 12 months, I'll make it happen. And then I've got another copy at my wardrobe. Excuse me. Every time I open up to select, what outfit I want to wear for the day, I will look at those visions. And at the age of 38, I've achieved everything I wanted. Every dream that I hoped for, I manifested, it came true, except for that one. And so I thought, well, if I can make a lot of things come true, I'm truly magical, then why can't I get over this part? What is it about this part of my life that I can't get it, get through it? Like it was just like I was searching for answers. And, in that search for answer, in that search of, I know this must be a way for me to find the answer, but it's like, where have you ever, been in a place where there's more, but you do not know which direction to find the
Mm.
resource, the people, the answer, and you could be like feeling so stuck and stagnated? That was where I was. And that was
Yeah.
where I go, you know what, maybe it's me going inward
Mm.
to ask myself, what could I unlock and unleash and, undo? Because if I can undo all those thoughts that didn't serve me, then I could possibly live in another way that is far more fun and exciting, and start to do it bit by bit. And so
Yeah.
that happened.
And it totally now makes sense why 38, right? Because you've got it all written down. So, when you kept saying 38, it's like, yeah, but how do you remember it was 38? Okay, now I get why. Secondly, by doing that, you've opened up a whole new opportunity of wardrobe options, right? Because you've now thrown skirts back into the mix. And just, in service of pure confession, when I was at school growing up, I used to get teased for two things. One was because I've got really big eyes. My dad's got really big eyes, big protruding eyes. So I used to get called frog eyes, right? So I would never let anyone see me side on because I was so conscious. But the boys also used to call me table legs because I've got a bigger sort of hips and thighs, but I've got really, really skinny ankles. So my legs looked like the legs of a table. So for a long time, I didn't wear shorts for different reasons to why you didn't wear skirts, but because all I could remember is that I was called tablets. I don't think I've ever publicly shared that, by the way. But given we're talking about legs and stories that you told yourself for so long, and now I will wear shorts because I'm 50, nearly 53, so I don't care anymore. But yeah, and I don't know when that shift happened. So thank you for sharing that because, like I said, sometimes when someone does come across as confident, it's really endearing to hear that you're where you are because of the work you've done and the attention that you've given to rewriting those stories and changing things. This didn't just happen. You made it happen, which means it's possible for anyone out there who's got something going on in their lives. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I have seen you in a skirt and you're gorgeous. And you embrace the red. You own it, Jocelyn. You own it. So what have you got to reach in now and really find some courage for in any area of your life, sort of from here on?
Um, there's a number of areas that I'm working on. At the moment, I really want to build my fitness to a whole nother level. And
Mm.
so, that's one area that I want to invest more and more of who I am myself, because as I don't want to say grow older, because, you go older in that sense, as I live more years in my years to come, you can feel fitter. It's a
Mm.
lie that the world say as you grow older you should look unattractive, or, you should look older, or you should just look boring. That's a lie. Because you can look so vibrant, so alive, so energetic, and if you invest the time in fitness, that's able, that's available. So that's one
Mm.
area that I am putting time and effort into. The next area is
Now,
my
before you
business.
go on,
So
have you not invested much time and energy into that in the past? Is that why this is something for you moving forward?
I have always invested time and energy in my physical health, but the mindset at the time was I used to have a PT twice a week and I do workout. The reason why I do workout was to actually manage my anger and frustration. It was not
Oh.
coming from a perspective of toning up and physical. Because I
Mm.
always feel that if I am, working in a highly demanding role, then the way for me to release stress, anger, frustrations is to go and run, go and do a workout, go and do a hit workout session, because then you release a lot of, endorphins, and you release a lot of good hormones. And so that was my perception of what living a great balanced life look like, more in terms of focusing on
Mm.
decreasing the stress level. But
Mm.
now it is different. Now I'm opting for a different way to integrate health and fitness, that it
Mm.
is actually possible to live longer looking more vibrant. And
Mm.
you don't always need to rely on, injectables or whatever. There is a lot of very natural way to
Mm.
maintain youthfulness. I don't
Mm.
drink.
Mm.
I can have a glass of wine, but I choose not to drink, right?
Mm.
I'm really, really cutting back so much on coffee. I used to drink six cups of coffee because it was normal in the banking and finance world. You catch up for coffee, and I was just drinking so much coffee. I'm like, is that necessary? I go for tea now.
Mm.
It's a lot of things like fried food. I avoid them. Any
Mm.
processed food, I avoid them. I eat fresh produce as much as I can. So all these things to help us stay healthy and vibrant, right? And
Mm.
do your blood check every year, if not every second year, to make sure that things are balanced, you got the right nutrients in your body, and keeping yourself in check for that is important. Don't wait until something triggers
Mm.
that, then sometimes it's a bit too late. So
Mm.
that's where the physical element and the health aspect comes in.
Good. Sorry, and I know you were going off onto the second moment or the thing that you need to reach in, but it's like, no, I need to know more about that. I need to know more. So that was gorgeous. So what's the other thing you got to reach in and find courage for? So fitness. What else?
I've So I want to do more in my world and in my business. So there is 38% of female in the legal sector who are leading the way. There is 24% for accounting female partners. There's about 20% plus for the financial planning. And these categories and these stats, had been a stat that just came out probably the last 6 months. And where I want to play my part as best as I can is to help these women lead the role to be the best role model for the next 10 years, 20 years of the generation to come.
Mm.
Because a lot of them can't give up if it's too hard. And I want to be there to champion them on. Because as they move further up in that role, it's actually very lonely for them, because they still feel that they are one out of six, male partners, one out of five, male partners in, different type in legal, accounting, or financial planning. And so they don't have role models that can thrive and can flourish in the role enough for the next generation to go, wow, that's what I want to aim for and that's what I want to do. And so
Mm,
the work that I do is to support the percentage to increase and to actually see that in conferences, there's a balance of female and male in the front line, not in
mm,
partner role where it's, organizational and culture and human resource and all that, not in those type of departments, because there's plenty of them in those type of departments. Where I am really narrowing and targeting is in the front line, the
mm.
revenue generation component. And there's not that many around
No.
because it's a very, very stressful environment to allow them to stay in their role. And it's easier
Mm,
to go, I've tested it for a few years, let me, pull back. But
mm,
what if you can't? And there are ways and method with the right support, with the right network, it is possible. And so that's what I want to
mm.
champion more and more.
Oh, I love it. And I was only at a financial planning conference last week. So it was a 4-day conference. I was speaking on the fourth day. I was the only female keynote speaker. And the session immediately after me was a panel session with 4 CEOs from some of the main providers in the industry. Every single one of them was male. And actually, when we got off the stage and, we're chit-chatting and what have you, the men made comment. They were that I was a woman, obviously, and we were all the speakers, but they made comment that they even recognized that the panel was the 4 men and that they were uncomfortable about it. But as everyone sat back and all of the main industry providers, where are the women at the top? There's no women at the top to have even been in those positions. And that was kind of one of those moments where here are the men saying, yeah, we can see the distribution of men to women at that level is not right, but we don't have a solution this minute. So it was a really interesting take and completely aligned with what you've just said. So you going out there and doing this work, Jocelyn, courageous, yes, life-changing completely for so many people. Oh my goodness. I can't believe it's nearly an hour. So I could just sit here and talk to you all day. But if somebody does want to know a little bit more about you, look at some of the work that you're doing or potentially sign up for some of the initiatives you've got, where should they go? We'll put details in the show notes, but where should they go just if they wanted to finish this podcast and go and have a look?
Absolutely. So thank you for that invitation. And for many of you, if you resonate with my stories and you want to go deeper into the work that I do, I offer a number of options, and a lot of the work that I do is actually curated and customized for the individual. And I find that that's really important because everyone is different, and until I know the exact root cause of the problem, I can prescribe a very generic template of solutions, which is not going to solve the problem that you are going through. So in order to find me, you can come to my website, you can come into LinkedIn, and also there is other platforms through this podcast episode that you also can find me as well. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Excellent. And I'll put all the details in the show notes. If you want to follow up, Jocelyn, thank you so much for coming on. I've learned things about you that I never knew, and we've had quite a number of lunches and coffees or teas. And, I'm still learning more. And the more I learn, the more amazing I think you are. So thank you for being a guest on the podcast today.
Thank you, Kim, for doing this great work, because every story that you are bringing in and sharing through your podcast, you're lifting up the game in terms of courage. And
Mm.
so it is very important work that you're doing. So thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for making it happen.
Thank you.